Hello and welcome to the latest in my series of videos on the magical archetypes. And this one is on the Seer and the Oracle. And although there are some differences in the Oracle and Seer, there's also a lot of overlap, which is why I'm doing them as one video. Also, just to say, the names I'm giving to the archetype that is the Oracle and the archetype that is Seer are really my sense of them and the names that feel for me the best fit. It doesn't at all mean that is the right way, the only way to name either of them. So don't get too hung up. If you're feeling there's a resonance with overall the archetype that I'm describing and you're thinking, well, actually it feels like I'm more the Oracle, but the word that feels more apt to me is the Seer, go at it. You know, you absolutely trust your own sense of knowing and feeling. So I'll speak to them as I see them, as I experience them, as I've witnessed others activate these archetypes, but also do really trust yourself. Also, if this is the first in the series that you've watched, what I've said in all of the others is that the magical archetypes all come from the same root. And so there's real similarities and overlaps between them. So if you're watching this and you're feeling a resonance with some aspects, but there isn't that kind of like full-bodied, that's me, it may well be that you're one of the other magical archetypes. And of course, because they are all magical, they all have traits in common. So you probably will, if, for example, your magical archetype is, I don't know, the witch, you will likely also have aspects of you that are kind of seeing types of qualities. And so it would be very expected that you'd resonate with some of what I'm saying, but you trust yourself. If you're feeling kind of like, that sounds like me, but not completely, what I would suggest you do is go watch the other videos and likely you'll be one of those instead. Is there anything else to say before I dive in? No, I think that's everything. And I also would particularly recommend watching the shaman video first, because it really is almost like the first principles of all the other magical archetypes. It's the one, it's the oldest one, it's the one that came first. So really that holds the pattern for many of the other or all of the other magical archetypes, even though they have their own unique qualities, the traits that they're strongest in. Okay, so growing up, the experience of the seers and oracles was that they were seeing more than they probably wanted to see, and certainly more than was typical. Their ability to see into what was going on beneath the surface, into the hearts and the minds of others, even into the past and into the future, could be very unsettling. It could be confusing and in some cases terrifying. And although I'm saying the word see, recognize that seeing can actually come in many forms. It doesn't need to be a kind of visual vision kind of seeing. That seeing could come in the form of words. It could come in the form of like embodied knowing. So many ways that there'll be an experience of having an understanding of something beyond the material. So I will continue probably to say the word seeing, but recognize however that shows up for you is still the same thing I'm talking about. So again, the experience was that they were seeing things that they started to recognize weren't typical. They were able to know things that they shouldn't know. And there's some sort of strange irony to this, that often the oracles and seers actually felt unseen themselves. And it seems to me there's a twofold reason for that. Firstly, in a material sense, it appeared to them that they were being overlooked, and that could be overlooked in favor of a sibling or, for example, their parents' career or some other kind of priority that was taking people's attention away from seeing them. So often their stories will involve some kind of being overlooked, being unseen. I think there's also the case that because they were able to see so deeply into others others weren't able to meet them with the same depth of seeing. So I think some of it was that even if they had people that were wonderfully attentive, they weren't able to see at the same depth as they were seeing others. So I think there was also that going on in terms of feeling unseen. As they then grow up, and they're now adults who are still, you know, to an extent unconscious or in hiding in terms of their gifts, it can be a very uncomfortable experience, because these gifts will continue working. They'll continue showing them things that they don't necessarily want to know. And that can be, again, very scary, but also it can provide this sense of responsibility. Should I be telling people what I'm seeing? And if I do, am I then responsible for then what happens, what people then do as a result of that? And there can also be this experience of, what if I make a mistake and then I'm blamed or punished in some way? And that might seem a bit of a, like, really, how likely is it? But if we recognize, like with a witch wound, this is a DNA deep experience. Back in the Dark Ages, people who foretold what was going to happen, if they were incorrect or if it led to unwanted consequences, could very much be killed or in some way punished. And so that fear is something that's been carried down the line and is viscerally felt by modern day seers and oracles. So this isn't a kind of like, oh, I don't want to say it because this could happen. This is something that is felt at a deeper level that maybe makes sense in terms of their lived experience. And I think it's for this reason that if you're attuned to what's going on for others at that deeper level, you'll have an experience of kind of like, there's something they're not saying. That's often my experience of the seers and oracles. I kind of have this like, there's something they're seeing and they're not saying. The other thing to know about the seers and oracles is they are very sensitive, very empathic. They have real similarities actually to the sage, which I've also done a video on. They feel a lot. And because of this, they can very much become like human pretzels, distorting and contorting themselves to fit in, to please others, not realizing, of course, that they're already so lovable, they're already perfect. They feel this sense of picking up everything that's going on around them and then needing to change how they show up to fit. Another key tell of the seers and oracles is they very much have an old soul quality. There is a sense of depth beneath their eyes. You can see that they are looking beneath the surface. They also seem to have often quite a watery quality. They call to mind bodies of water, like a lake or an ocean. There's a sense of, there's this kind of quiet, calm energy, and then this kind of hidden depths. So that's going to be the case for the seer and oracle, no matter how actualized they are yet, no matter how much they've become their medicine. Everything I've described is going to be showing up to an extent. But when they are being their medicine, when they've chosen into really understanding the gift that they are and expressing it into the world, they become an open channel for the divine to speak to. Incredibly wise, incredibly perceptive. What I've noticed, and again, the reason I've named these two archetypes that have a lot of crossover but do have some differences, the differences I've seen most are that the oracles tend most towards seeing what's universal or cultural, whereas the seers tend towards more seeing the personal in the people around them. But of course, what's most personal is most universal, and vice versa. And so there always will be overlap. Either way, they are very much this seer of the past, the present, the future, the truth. There'll be adept in one of the clairs. So when we use words like clairvoyant, this is a way of naming how those gifts show up. And again, as I said earlier, they can show up in all sorts of ways. They are a diviner, someone who is able to know what is needed, what is next. They are a speaker of mystery and truth. They're very much the guide that we need. something interesting that if you're into human design that I've noticed is that the seers and oracles who are manifestors have this a much more kind of like piercing energy. And my sense is, you know, how I was talking about oracles are seeing the kind of what's needed in the collective. They're seeing what's happening universally. It feels to me that they need to see that because they are here. The manifestors are here to bring in the new. So of course they need to know what's needed. They need to be able to see ahead. And of course, that will also show up because they'll be looking at the world around them to be able to inform that. So again, none of this is absolute, like they only see the collective, but there definitely seems to be this real sense of like, this is what's needed next. Whereas the seers, I've noticed a lot of those are the projectors. Again, I'm talking about human design. So if you don't know anything about human design, notice the way I'm describing the people rather than getting too caught up in the kind of names, unless of course you want to go dive down a rabbit hole and find out all things about human design. But the projectors have a kind of, I'd say, a quieter, more reflective energy than the manifestors. And they truly are the guides. That's the role they have. And so again, their role seems to be much more seeing the people around them and what's true for them and guiding them. And so again, there's going to be overlap, but that's the quality I've seen that's different between the oracles and the seers. And regardless whether you look at it through a human design lens, the way that I've described those two types of people, I've seen show up over and over again that they've got quite different qualities, although what they're doing has real overlap. So these people are absolutely the medicine the world needs. We need these guides. We need people to be the oracles and the seers and to be expressed as their medicine. So if you're watching this and you are having this sense of, this does feel like me, first of all, I really acknowledge you. It's so powerful to have that sense of coming home to yourself and recognizing that there's no accidents here. As much as it has been at times a painful, lonely path, recognize you are needed. You are absolutely needed now more than ever. I will suggest you go and watch a resource that Jonathan and I created all about being your medicine and why it's a gift to the world. That would be a really beautiful next step for you. And we also run a 9-month-long crucible called Wake the Wild Medicine that is all about these kind of magical archetypes and embodying and expressing them to become your medicine. So it's really worth going to have a look. We run that once a year. So have a look and see if it's calling you and if we have a space available on the next one coming. At the moment, as I record this, we have one space left in the upcoming Wake the Wild Medicine, and you can find out all about that at primalhappiness.co/medicine. I really value you and honor you becoming your medicine in the world. Thank you so much for watching. I love you. Bye-bye.